Well, hello and welcome to From the Woods Today. I'm your host for today, Billy Thomas. My co-host, Renee Williams, is on assignment, so she won't be with us today, but we've got a great show for you all. We really appreciate you all being with us today. If you are joining us via Zoom, please use the chat pod to interact with us, and we'll try to respond as timely as possible. But I've got three great guests coming up. Two of them are from our UK Forestry Natural Resources Extension team, and one of them is from our great partner, the Kentucky Division of Forestry. So first, we're going to have Ellen Crocker. Dr. Crocker is going to be talking about those pesky plants. And then we're going to bring in our guest from the Kentucky Division of Forestry, Michael Fraley. Michael is the fire chief for the Division of Forestry. He's going to be talking about fall wildfire season that we got going on right now and what we can kind of need to know about that stuff. And then we have our very own Matt Springer. Dr. Springer is going to be covering deer collisions. It is the season where those occur, so we want to be talking about those a little bit. So again, just glad to have you all with us today. Enjoy the show, interact via the comments section or chat pod there, and we will get back to you as quick as we can. So really, without any further ado, I'd like to ask Dr. Crocker to join me. Hey, Ellen, how are you?
Doing great. How are you doing, Billy?
I'm doing well. So it looks like you've got another installment of your pesky plants for us.
I do. I've got a short video for folks introducing a pesky plant, an invasive plant that might be new to some of you. Fortunately, we don't have it widespread in Kentucky yet, but it's in some of our neighboring states, and we'd like it to stay there and not move to us. So I'm going to share this video about this plant, but also talk a little bit more about it because we recently had a report of it in Kentucky, and thanks to a really proactive landowner, we were able to get out there and hopefully eradicate it. So give you a little bit more information about this plant, mile-a-minute weed, as well as what to do when you see some kind of new issue and you're kind of wondering, is this a problem? What should I do next? So with that, I'm going to go ahead and share this video. Mile-a-minute weed is an invasive plant that grows as a vine and can carpet areas. It has a distinctive form with triangular leaves, lots of tiny thorns, and attractive berry-like fruit. In this edition of Pesky Plants, I'll introduce this species and what you can do about it. Mile-a-minute weed is an herbaceous annual vine. That means each year it's going to grow from seeds instead of having a perennial root system. Those vines are going to grow in overlapping layers, carpeting an area. Its leaves are attached to those vines in an alternate arrangement, not opposite, and they have a really distinctive triangular form, with about each side of that triangle being the same length. Vines are covered with tiny thorns that recurve down, and they can really get stuck in things, almost like Velcro. In addition to those leaves, the tips of those shoots are surrounded by a round leaf-like structure. That's where the flowers will eventually form, and while they're not very distinctive, they will form berries that are brightly colored and attractive, starting out kind of a light pink color, maybe turning purple and steely blue. Those are distinctive. Inside each one of those is one small black seed. Vines are killed by frost, but you'll see those dead vines covering areas into the winter. After that, the seed will stay in the seed bank and will germinate. Seeds can continue to germinate for 6 or more years. Mile-a-minute weed is native to India and East Asia. Here in the US, it's widely established in the Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic. Closer to us, it's in Ohio and West Virginia. It likes a range of habitats, from roadsides to old fields to woodlands. While it prefers full sun and wet areas, it can really thrive in a range of different sites. Mile a minute weed can grow incredibly fast, up to 6 inches a day for each one of those shoots. It's also a prolific seed setter. It produces seeds that are eaten by birds and other animals and carried long distances. In addition, those seeds remain viable in the soil for a long time. Seeds can also float, and they can move downstream that way along rivers or in major flood events. Hand-pulling vines can be an effective management strategy, but make sure to wear your PPE, gloves, long sleeve shirts, because those thorns can be really painful. In addition, because this is an annual, you really want to take care that you're not spreading seeds around in that process. So if plants are already setting seeds, make sure to bag those up and destroy them instead of leaving them to germinate the next year. Mechanical removal, like with a string trimmer, can help reduce that seed set, but it's not going to kill the plant or prevent all of the seed set. While there are herbicides that can be used against it, there are some challenges with this as well because of the way it grows in those carpeting layers that kind of blanket each other and will protect the lower layers from that herbicide. There are some pre-emergence herbicides that you can use to prevent seeds in the seed bank from germinating and growing, as well as post-emergence herbicides that you would spray on the foliage. Because Mile a minute weed is an annual, that seed bank and managing new seed is key. You're going to want to continuously monitor sites where you've done some management to make sure that new seeds aren't sprouting up and that you get them when they do. In addition, you don't want to move those seeds around to new areas, which is easy to do when you're moving soil, or even if there's a waterway nearby that might accidentally do it for you. The sooner you can catch Mile a minute weed or any other invasive plant, the better for your management and the less you'll have to do to manage it into the future. Thanks for joining me today and learning a little bit more about Mile a minute weed. If you'd like to learn more, make sure to check us out online and follow us on social media. Thanks for doing your part to fight invasive plants and promote the health of your woodlands.
So hopefully no one is seeing any Mile a minute weed around, but it is in a lot of our neighboring areas. So this is something that you want to be on the lookout for.
Yeah. Ellen, thanks for sharing that. I was, as you were going over there, I'm like, is there something that's finally going to grow over top of kudzu? No, it's it.
Well, and I don't know if you saw in some of those photos, it was growing with a lot of other invasives. So it really likes that kind of habitat where, you know, it's not the only invasive that likes these disturbed sites and edges. I think in one of the photos, it was growing on top of Tree of Heaven, and another, it was growing on Japanese honeysuckle. You know, a lot of these species that can rapidly colonize and take advantage of those conditions faster than some of our natives can.
Yeah. I mean, 6 inches.
I know it's not a mile a minute exactly, but it's still pretty fast that it can grow. And if you think about like the expanse that it'll cover, each of that is establishing each year via seed. So something like kudzu, that's sprouting up from an extensive root system. So managing that root system is really key for long-term control. With Mile a minute weed, on the one hand, you might think, oh, it's easier, it doesn't have this root system. But on the other hand, it has all of these seeds in the soil that are really hard to get because you're not going to get them all. They're tiny little seeds. So you've got to kind of monitor that year after year if you want to deplete that seed bank or catch it super early on. There is some really exciting work being done with a biological control for Mile a minute weed. There's a weevil that kind of further northeast, they've been testing and releasing native to Asia that's been introduced to kind of control Mile a minute weed. And so like many invasive plants, it's going to get to us eventually. You know, there's the cat is out of the bag there, but the longer we can wait to get it, the greater the likelihood that this biological control and other things might be, you know, giving us more tools in the toolbox to deal with it.
You know, that's such a great point, and it really speaks to the importance of early detection, right? So, you know, to keep it from spreading across Kentucky, you know, we really need to be vigilant in that regard and catch any of those as quick as we can.
It's true. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about how to do that, as well as a success story. At least we hope it's a success story with kind of one of our landowners in the state and mile a minute weed. And just kind of what you can be doing if you see new invasives in general, because I think this is a common question is, someone notices something unusual in their woods or in a natural area and kind of wonders, what should they do? So what should you do if you see something? So I'm going to share my screen in just a moment and talk with you all about that. But if you have any questions on mile a minute weed or other things, make sure to put those in the chat and I'll discuss. So if you are seeing something new, some new invasive species, I really want you to report it. And even if it's an invasive species that's already here and already established, there's no harm in reporting it as well. But if it's something new that we don't know about yet, we might be able to locally eradicate it so that it doesn't spread further. Unfortunately, species like bush honeysuckle and Callery pear, they're all over, but it's still helpful to know where they are and kind of where you can prioritize some of that management. But if it's something new, like in these photos here, I've got mile a minute weed. This is the Asian longhorn beetle, which is a large invasive insect that attacks maple and other trees. And these are spotted lanternflies, another new invasive species that's spreading throughout the country and our area. So if you see something like this, it's really valuable to report it because the sooner you can catch it, the greater the chances that we can actually do something about it. So if you do see some new invasive species, I really want you to report it. Report it to your county agent, to a KDF forester, somebody in the know who can connect this to others that might be able to manage it, might be able to kind of determine whether or not it can be eradicated and then help you if so. But there's also some really useful technology to assist you with both finding and identifying invasive species and reporting and seeing the locations of invasive species that I just wanted to briefly talk about. So in addition to the great value in just directly calling up your county agent or your Kentucky Division of Forestry forester, here are some other tools in the toolbox for reporting invasive plants. The first one I wanted to mention is iNaturalist. If you haven't used iNaturalist yet, it's a really great tool. There is an app that's free for your phone as well as a website. And it's a citizen science app in that you can report different species, whether they're plants or insects or animals, and then share those with other people. And the really nice thing that I like about it is that it helps you identify things. So from the perspective of reporting a new invasive species, it's really useful in a couple different ways. First, if you have the app on your phone and you're out in your woods and you're wondering, what's this plant that I see? Is it a problem or is it a normal thing? You can take a picture of it and it'll kind of immediately, if you have internet access right then, provide you some suggestions. Now, not all of them are going to be right. In this case, the first one is what it is, winter creeper. And it's got a lot of other suggestions, so it's not always going to be 100% right, but it can get you in the right ballpark. And I find that really useful. In addition to that automatic way of doing it, there's also this kind of social component where people will see it and they'll comment on what they think it is. In addition to getting some identification that way, you can also look at your area and see what people are finding. So if you go to the website for iNaturalist, you can put in your address and you'll see that look how many, there are 26 million observations overall for the world on iNaturalist. So a lot of people are using this app. But even if you go to, a location near you, you might be surprised by the number of observations that have been submitted there. Different species, whether they're plants, whether they're fungi, or animals that kind of can help you learn about what's in your area, what's common in your area. And then Another feature that I really like about iNaturalist is that you can track specific things. So I'll give you an example of something that happened recently with iNaturalist, and that this is kind of, I'm going to look for mile a minute weed, the plant we just talked about. And here's where it is in North America. You can see it's a lot here in the Northeast, the Mid-Atlantic, a little bit in the Midwest. But wait a minute. Just a couple weeks ago, someone submitted an observation in Kentucky, the first one that we've had in Kentucky. And you can see this is definitely mile a minute weed. It's got really good photos. And so people started suggesting that. And then there was a conversation within the website of, oh, hey, this is a invasive we don't want. Could we maybe reach out to you and come check it out? And fortunately, the landowner who noticed this said, sure, come out and you can look at this together. We followed up with them, and they also posted about this on Facebook, and we were able to get in touch with them and learn more about what they were seeing. It turns out it was a very contained, about 10 by 10 meter patch of it, which is great because that means we could actually try to eradicate it. So myself and some people from the Office of Kentucky Nature Preserves and Kentucky Invasive Plant Council went out last week or 2 weeks ago and visited this landowner and looked at the mile a minute weed, removed those vines, and tried to get as many of those berries as we could. Now, I'm sure we did not get all of them, but we did bag everything up that we could. The berries, the vines themselves, so they don't produce more berries, and put them in bags, and they're going to be burned so that they don't spread it around. We're also planning to go back in the spring and do a second round, try to find any seedlings and spray them with herbicide to prevent them from developing. So here's just a picture of all of the bags of mile a minute weed that we got in this small area. And those little thorns are really like Velcro. They'll stick to you, they'll stick to each other and kind of mat over things. So you definitely want to wear your gloves for this kind of work. And here's our assistants, the landowners' dogs there helping us with this huge pile of mile a minute weed. So a big thank you to these really observant and proactive landowners who reported mile a minute weed. They saw something unusual and they said something, they reported it. And that's what I want you to do. If you see something unusual, I'd rather get 100 emails that aren't mile a minute weed and catch mile a minute weed. And the same goes for spotted lanternfly and other invasive threats that we'd really like to catch before they spread out of control. Another great resource in addition to iNaturalist is called EdMaps. It's both a website and there's an app that you can use too. And EdMaps is really a preferred invasive reporting platform for professionals because you can not only track where invasive species are, but also different management that's been done for them. Have they been treated? Have they been removed? And another really nice thing about EdMaps is that when you go to the website, you can put in a species and find, the map county by county, where has it been found in the country. You can also get a map of its potential future range. So they have models saying, here's where it's going to be in the future. And as you can see from mile a minute weed, it's going to spread through much of our state, or it's predicted to spread through much of our state. So certainly something to be on the lookout for. And if you are an educator or a land manager, I recommend checking out EdMaps. It's a great resource. So with that, I'm going to stop my share and see if there are any questions.
What a great success story with that couple letting you know, Ellen. That was awesome.
Yeah, I have to give them a big shout out for their work. And with other invasive species, we've had similar things happen. So with Asian longhorn beetle in southern Ohio, the only reason we know about it is because a landowner reported that their trees were dying. And that's happened over and over again. So those, you're the eyes in the field, and you can have a big impact on reporting some of these invasive species.
Yeah, so please take advantage of those resources Ellen shared. Ellen, thank you for that segment. It was really good. And I just love the citizen science coming together and working the way we would hope it would. So
yeah, well, thanks to those landowners who reported it. Thanks to the Office of Kentucky Nature Preserves and Kentucky Invasive Plant Council for coming out and trying to eradicate mile-a-minute weed in Kentucky. Is it going to get here? Sure. But the longer we delay its arrival, the better.
Yeah. Teamwork. Got to work together on that. Excellent. Thank you, Ellen, very much.
Thank you.
All right. Excuse me, folks. We got Michael Fraley coming up next. It is in the midst of wildfire season, Mike. I'm glad you could join us from the Kentucky Division of Forestry.
No problem. Thank you, Billy, for inviting me here. I'm trying to get my PowerPoint to share here again. All right. Thanks, Billy. Good morning, everybody. My name is Michael Fraley. I'm the Fire Management Chief for the Kentucky Division of Forestry, and I'll be going over some things for our fall 2021 fire season. Just some more up to date on stuff. There are Kentucky fire burn laws that are in effect right now. It's KRS 149. It gives us the authority to put out wildfires in the Division of Forestry across the state. Biggest one is the KRS 149-400. That outlines our hazardous fire season dates. So this fall, it started October 1st and go through December 15th. So during that time frame, you can only burn after 6 o'clock at night. So here's just something to go over on the fire side of things. Again, we are in our fall fire season, so it's October 1st, December 15th. So if you're within 150 foot of any woodland or brushland area, you'll have to wait till after 6 o'clock at night to burn. And the fire needs to be extinguished by 6 a.m. the following morning. If you have any questions or anything like that, you can get on our Division of Forestry's website, or you can call our headquarters, or even call one of our branch offices, which I have a slide on there. It has all those numbers on it. But just be careful when you're burning stuff. Just don't let anything out. If you do get a fire out and we have to come out to it, there may be suppression charges charged to the landowner. Again, the reason why we say you can't burn from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. is because it's higher temperatures, usually has a higher wind, and the fuel moisture of the day has lower humidity. So lower humidity, higher winds, and higher temperatures means a lot bigger fires, a lot faster it goes. So if you wait till after 6 o'clock at night, usually it's lower temperatures, less wind, and the humidity has risen to cause not to have very large fires. It actually will cause fires to almost go out sometimes, depending on the humidity that we get moisture-wise at nighttime. Here is a map of all our Division of Forestry locations for our field. If you can, you call the offices that are on here, and they can give you ideas if there are anything going on in those counties. The county judges do get a hold of us if they put a burn ban on, so you can call our offices and we can verify if there is one or not. But we have 6 locations. We have one out in Madisonville for our Madisonville branch. We have one in Campbellsville for our Campbellsville branch. We got one in Moorhead. We got one in Frankfort. We got one in Pineville and one in Hazard. What I'm going to talk today about with our upcoming fire season is our program we call is Firewise program. This is a national program that Division of Forestry is in partner with it through a nationalized that we do in Kentucky for certain communities and stuff. Just some background on it. Kentucky Firewise program encourages local solutions for wildfire safety by involving all parties that could possibly be in the efforts to protect people and property from the risk of wildfires. We do employ a Firewise wildland fire mitigation specialist. Her name's Kesley Baker. She's out of our Hazard branch office. She mainly covers the whole state, but she does cover more of our fire-prone areas of the state, which is in our eastern part, is Moorhead, Hazard, and Pineville branches. As of today, we have 12 Firewise communities. As you can see in the map here, they are spread out pretty far and wide in our eastern part of the state. And they take care of a lot of them are fire department areas and communities that have gotten together, and the main goal is to get areas out in the field where houses may be stuck up next to a mountainside that has woodland, brushland areas touching the house. So as you can see here, this is what Firewise mainly is. You got 3 main areas. You got immediate zone of 0 to 5 feet. That's where you want to try to keep a minimum vegetation around. And I'll go into more details here in a second. Next zone would be intermediate zone. That's your 5 to 30 foot area. It has different parameters and stuff. And extended zone is your farther out zone where things can be a lot farther out apart from each other. So on the first intermediate zone is usually at 5 foot. It's the farthest area. This is where you really need to clear up around houses with leaf fall going to happen this year and things starting to die like grasses and stuff. You want to make sure that you're cleaning the roofs and gutters. Anywhere you see there are loose shingles around the house or roof tiles, where maybe an ember might be able to get into an area. Any kind of reduce your vents and stuff around a house by installing 1/8 inch metal screens around it. Just trying to keep and put in areas where an ember might get into that area. This is the best area to defend your house, is keeping it clean. Make sure you're looking just for any flammable materials. Just try to get it away from any kind of exterior walls and stuff to make sure you have it safe. That's mainly that red area of the house. Your next area is your intermediate zone. That's the 5 to 30 foot further from the house. Again, you want to try to remove all the vegetation around large stationary items like propane tanks. A lot of people have propane tanks to help heat their houses and stuff. If you get a lot of debris underneath those and a fire gets underneath that, it can cause a lot more problems. Having little walkways and patios help as fuel breaks around a house. Keeping your lawns even actually mowed and keep them down to less than 4 inches in height helps keep fire from coming and running towards the structure. You also want to remove ladder fuels. Having that taken down helps the fire not going from the ground, getting up into the trees and torching them out and throwing embers. Also, by having tree placements around, having mature canopies not closer than 10 foot to a house will help also. Exterior zone, this is really the far out part zone of the house. This is where you need the deposit of heavy accumulation. You're wanting to put all the stuff farther out away from the house. You're going to remove all dead plants and tree materials. You're going to remove vegetation adjacent to storage buildings, outbuildings. Trees that are 30, 60 feet from the home should have at least 12 foot between canopy tops. That way, if a fire does get in the canopy, it's not jumping tree to tree. Even with the 60 ones, you want to keep them less than 6 feet canopy tops from each other. This is just some of the areas that you got to watch around a home and structure and stuff to be able to keep things safe around a home. And by having these areas cleaned out and defendable, if we show up to a fire in an area like this and it has a good defendable space, it's a lot easier for us to put lines around it compared to if one has lots of material up next to the house. It's going to take us longer to save that structure to keep the fire from getting to it. A lot of this information came from my wildland and fire coordinator for prevention here. Her name's Kesley Baker. I got her email here, and I'm willing to share it with anybody if you have more information about Firewise or try to get a community into Firewise. We're always looking for new communities or areas to get into the system. But a lot of information also comes from our National Fire Protection Association, who is the main sponsor of Firewise USA. And with that, Billy, I'm willing to have any questions or anything like that.
Michael, thank you very much. Important information, right? I was a little surprised that we don't have more Firewise communities since Firewire is a threat, and having a big audience of extension folks, here with us today and others, I'm wondering how these communities kind of start that conversation and get that ball rolling, especially in areas that have been kind of prone to, wildfire issues in the past. Yeah, maybe any thoughts or, for those groups.
So those groups that want to get involved in having Firewise in their areas, community stuff, is to get a hold of Kesley Baker. She's our main contact for Firewise program, and she will get in touch with you. She works with a lot of fire departments too, reaching out to them and working with them. Like I said, we have 12 certified ones right now. She's working with 3 other ones right now in the eastern part too. So any new people that want to get involved, we're very welcome to it. We do have a Firewise grant that we give out annually to these groups and stuff that they can apply for, and they can get they can buy chainsaws and blowers to help move debris around people's houses. We also, a lot of them are fire departments that apply for this grant system too. And they go out and they do assessments on people's houses to come up with what needs to be done to remove the vegetation or how much time it's going to take to do it. This program also works on getting 911 addresses added to their mailboxes. So that way the county can get to those areas if there's a fire and stuff. So there's a lot of good out of this program. Yeah. And again, if more people want information, they can get a hold of me and I can get them in touch with Kesley, or they can email Kesley, or I can give it later down the road if you guys need. I give her office number and you guys can give her a call. Yeah,
Michael, thank you. You know, it was one of the things we hope by having you on this show today, right, was to kind of connect with some communities maybe unaware that this is even an opportunity for them to participate in. And so, you know, I really appreciate you kind of sharing that, how they can get involved and engage, because, you know, it's easy to not think about it right now, but if you have some tragedy in the area, you really wish you would have done something about it in advance. So this Firewise is an approach to kind of mitigate that and minimize those tragedies before they happen.
Yep.
Yeah. So hopefully we'll have others. You know, you come back next year and we can see a bigger map with more communities that are now protected from this. You know, and I think a lot of people, when they think of wildfires, you know, they see all the stuff that we see out west, right? And you see these, you know, hundreds of thousands of acres burning, and, you know, the entire canopies are burning. And, you know, our fires are a little bit different here in Kentucky, typically, right?
Yes, we mainly have ground fires. We don't really have the canopy fires. Out west, they have a lot more of the pines, and the pines really torch out. Here we have hardwood species, so our leaves, pines don't lose their needles, so our deciduous trees lose their leaves and they all fall on the ground, so we get more ground fires. So we're able to not see as big fires as you see out west, but we have about as many fires in the southeast area of the U.S. as they do out west every year. Yeah. You know, just because our fires stay smaller, but we have more fires.
Right. Yeah. And probably more to kind of, to manage in some ways, to be honest. You know, and I think another probably issue we have, Michael, is people will see it the next year and it's kind of greened up, right? You know, and they might, so what was the problem? There was a fire here, but I can't really tell that there was any issue. So, you know, so maybe they kind of forget, you know, how important or how frequent we have these fires, but there really are some issues, even if it doesn't look like there are, right?
Yeah. So a lot of our areas are naturally regen very fast compared to, you see the ones out west, they just devastate and they take everything out. Our woods here are hardwood species again, and they regenerate real fast compared to pine species. A lot of them do not generate real quickly unless you have the seed source in the ground. And out there, when fire goes through, it really kills a lot of seed source compared to here. You know, a lot of our trees send a lot of good bearing fruit to the ground, and a lot of those are fire adapted species that like to have fires to be able to keep them and make them grow.
Yeah. So folks, take care of your woods. If you see any fires, let the Division of Forestry know, or local authorities, so that those small fires don't become big fires, you know. And we don't want a repeat of back in, what was it, 2016, Michael, some of those huge fires we were having here in Eastern Kentucky. And I think a lot of people remember the Gatlinburg fire down there and how devastating that was. Yeah, we want to avoid those.
Yeah, they're predicting for us to have a low to average fire season this spring here. So it's just is what they're predicting from the Weather Service based on predicted weather coming in. So we'll probably have about an average fall fire season. So it won't be as drastic as you probably saw back in 2016.
Okay, well, that's great to hear that, you know, but I think, you know, don't let that lull you into a false sense of security, right? Because here in Kentucky, our weather can change rapidly, right? And just a few days of really hot weather can really make conditions very kind of like a tinderbox. So we got to be careful for sure.
Correct. Yeah.
All right. Well, Michael, we'll have you back on here. Appreciate you being with us today and sharing this information. And just remind everybody, the Kentucky Division of Forestry does so much to help our woodlands and wildlife as well here in the state, and protecting from wildfire is certainly an important one of those. So, Michael, appreciate all you do and all the fine folks at the Kentucky Division of Forestry. We're glad that you all are here and appreciate the work that you all do very much.
Thank you for inviting me, Billy.
Oh, you're welcome. We'll have you back again, buddy. All right. All right. So we'll keep the show rolling. So we're going to get out of the fire talk a little bit, and we're going to bring up our own Dr. Matt Springer. And, Matt, we just got off fires, but we're kind of getting into a hot topic as well with you, right?
Yeah, it also can be not a good topic to have to deal with for sure. Yeah, it is. In a way, deer season in multiple fashions, right? So we have hunting seasons in full swing, and we're coming up on firearm season in about 3 weeks. However, it is also roadkill deer season, as my trip out to Western Kentucky on Monday showed. Unfortunately, for some folks, there was a bad ending there, especially on the deer side. Yeah. But I wanted to go over a few points, things to remember as we're in the heart and thick of, basically coming into deer breeding season, and is also, like I said, the time that we see a lot more deer activity and deer crossing roads. So it is basically time to be deer aware in Kentucky or anywhere close to the range of white-tailed deer. We are coming into breeding season, and as I will show you, there's a reason why we have to be concerned and a little bit more attentive as we're driving through areas that have deer populations that even low deer population areas can have problems with deer vehicle collisions. To give you an idea on perspective on how often deer and vehicles end up meeting each other in a not great way. Last year in Kentucky, we had just under 2,100 reported cases of collisions with deer. Now, this is actually a low number historically. In 2019 and 2018, we were over 3,000 collisions each of those years. And the decrease probably had something to do with the pandemic and activity levels. So in a way that was good. However, we would expect that number to jump right back up this year as we were returning to normal. So it is a common occurrence in the state of Kentucky, unfortunately, and many folks have probably experienced this. I have had several family members that have gone through this and just witnessed this issue last weekend as I was driving to the grocery store with a woman who unfortunately collided with a deer on her way home from work. The reason why we're talking about this now is, we actually see about half of these collisions in October and November. And that is directly related to the breeding season. Now, in terms of deer are much smaller than our automobiles. And usually out of those 3,000 collisions, we don't have too many problems. But unfortunately, every year about 1,000 folks have some kind of injury related to these accidents. And even worse than that, we lose about three folks each year to deer vehicle collisions. It is something that, if you can reduce your risk and associated with hitting a deer, it's a good thing for many reasons. Outside of, trying to stay healthy and uninjured, in terms of economic issues, each collision on average costs us, the insurance company or individuals, about $4,300 in repair costs. And, put things in perspective, we're, about 3,000 collisions a year. We're, I believe, 12th in the nation in terms of deer vehicle collision rates per driver, whereas our neighbor to the east there is number one. They sit at about 1 in 37 people annually will hit a deer. Their deer vehicle collision rate is incredibly high. They have high deer numbers in a lot of their state, and the roads and forests and deer habitat are very close together on much of their transit infrastructure, which is a recipe for putting deer in front of cars. Now, biologically, why are we seeing October and November as the big months for deer vehicle collisions. Well, it is breeding season, or the rut, as we call it, is termed within deer hunting and deer science. And what happens during the rut is that male deer especially will increase their average daily movement rates 3 or 4 fold, to the point where a deer that would normally spend all of its time on about 50 to 70 acres will expand its range to about 5 square miles. So deer are up and moving. They're moving a lot, and they're moving in unfamiliar areas, all in the effort to try to reproduce. And that is the number one thing that's on their mind. And safety is not generally there on the top like it usually is the rest of the year. So as these animals are moving, they're not really caring about anything else around them, which is why hunters love to hunt the rut, because it offers a lot of good opportunities at harvesting older and smarter, wiser deer. It also means that these animals move a lot and move across roads a lot. To put it in perspective, you can see the graph at the bottom there is the average movement distance by time of day. And one of the other, on top of deer moving a lot at this time of year, deer are crepuscular, meaning they move quite a bit more at daybreak and in the evening, right as the sun is setting. So if you are thinking about when we drive home or drive into work in the morning, especially in late October and November, those times correspond very much with sunrise and sunset, the point in time when deer are most active. So you are basically combining two things together: more active deer and putting the times when deer are most active in the times that we are driving the most. It's a recipe for collisions, basically. So what can you do to hopefully decrease your likelihood of having an issue? Well, keep your eyes open, be alert, look for deer near roadways. And if you do see a deer or see a deer crossing the road, you want to slow down immediately, because there's a good chance, deer often travel in family units, but during breeding season, you will also see lone females being chased by males as part of their breeding activities. And it may be one male, but it may also be as many as 7, 8 males if it is doe and estrus. So you can have multiple deer that just are running across the road, trying to keep near each other because of reproducing likelihood. So you want to basically slow down, take your time as you cross the area, or go by the area you saw the deer cross the road, and take your time. Allow yourself the ability to stop if you need to. Secondly, if you do have a deer that comes out in the road in front of you, what you really do not want to try to swerve to avoid the deer or any other wildlife in general. You're much more likely to have an injury or fatality in an accident where you lose control of the vehicle because you were swerving to get out of the way of hitting an animal. So it's not great to hit an animal. Obviously, usually the animals do not benefit from that. However, you're more likely to remain safe and use all those safety features that your vehicle has to deal with that collision, instead of potentially going off the road and hitting a tree, which is a whole lot harder to deal with than a 150-pound deer. So maintain control of the wheel, and unfortunately just kind of ride through it if you need to. And usually the deer gets pushed out in front of the vehicle and away from it, saving you from most injuries. Now, if you do happen to hit a deer, you want to make sure that you maintain control of your vehicle, get to the side of the road, make sure everyone's okay, and then call the authorities at the very least to report the incident, because they do keep track of those incidents and use those to try to put out the signs to make other drivers more aware of potential areas that deer cross the road frequently. Same goes for elk, bear, many of our large wildlife species. There is opportunities, if the animal unfortunately is only injured, having the law enforcement officers show up. Usually they're able to humanely euthanize that animal so that it does not have to suffer any longer than it needs to. So as we progress through the end of October here into November and December, remember that the rut will actually peak about mid-November. However, most of the running activity where it's at its highest peak in terms of movement is usually around the second week of November. After that, it's will continue on into early December, but it's much more dampened down relative to the end of October and early November time periods. So that's kind of all I have in terms of the PSA on deer vehicle collisions for this time. So if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Matt, thank you very much for that segment. That's a lot of collisions, you know. I mean, wow, I was unaware it was that many normally.
It's a lot. Yeah. I mean, when you think about it, especially as you drive up the I-75 corridor from Lexington to Cincinnati, from Cincinnati to Louisville or in between, you'll notice in areas where there's high deer populations that they do get hit quite a bit. And, you know, we have issues with other wildlife species, but deer tend to, because of their population numbers and their activity patterns, tend to be the worst.
Yeah, and I think you made a really great point too. You know, you never want to hit a deer if you can help it, but it's much better than hitting some other immovable object or another vehicle or something like that. And I know the tendency might be to kind of swerve, but yeah, I think just remind people not to. So important.
Yeah, it's not good to go off the road or cross the center line. You know, it's your vehicle is repairable. That's the thing to keep in mind. Your vehicle is repairable.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, folks, if you got any questions for Matt or for Ellen or Michael, we'd certainly take those now. We've covered a lot of ground today, Matt. It's been a good show. I appreciate each of my guests that have come on today. So folks, we appreciate you all as well, the viewers being out there. If your community's not Firewise, maybe think about it, right? Keep on the lookout for those investment plans. Ellen showed you how you can kind of report those and get that information out. And Dr. Springer has shared with us how we can avoid deer collisions, or at least minimize our issues with deer collisions and be aware of them if it does happen. So a big thanks to each of you all. So Matt, I'm not saying anything else, and Michael or Ellen neither. So we'll go ahead and wrap this show up for today. But a big thanks to our guests. So, folks, if you ever want to see something on From the Woods Today, please let us know. You can check us out online, fromthewoodstoday.com. We have a little link to a survey where you can kind of let us know if there's a topic you'd like to see covered, and we'd be happy to try to cover those. But we'll be back next week at 11 o'clock for another episode of From the Woods Today. We hope that you'll enjoy or join us then. And we also hope that you'll let others know about this opportunity to learn about our woods here in Kentucky. So signing off. Thank you much. See you next week. Bye-bye.